The storm before the calm Diane Harper stood at the kitchen counter, her hands trembling slightly as she chopped vegetables for dinner. The house smelled of roasted chicken, and the sounds of her children laughing upstairs brought a brief smile to her face. Tommy and Emma were playing in their room, innocent and happy, unaware of the tension that had been building in their home for months. The front door slammed shut with such force that the picture frames on the hallway wall rattled. Diane's heart sank. She knew that sound. Richard was home, and he was angry about something. The weight of silence, Diane. His voice cut through the house like a blade. She wiped her hands on a kitchen towel and walked slowly toward the living room. Richard stood there, his expensive suit perfectly tailored, his briefcase thrown carelessly on the sofa. In his hand he held what looked like a credit card statement.
Yes,
she answered, her voice steady despite the anxiety rising in her chest. Richard turned to face her, his expression cold and calculating. Do you want to explain this? He waved the statement in her direction. Diane moved closer and saw the charges. A new winter coat for Emma, shoes for Tommy, groceries, and a modest moisturizer she had purchased for herself after months of hesitation. Those are normal household expenses, Richard. The children needed new clothes, and I bought a few things for the house. The first cut he laughed, but there was no humor in it. The sound was harsh and mocking. Normal expenses? Is that what you call wasting my money? Look at this skincare product. Diane, do you honestly think some cream is going to fix what time has done to you? The words hit her like a physical blow. She felt her throat tighten, but she fought to maintain her composure. I just wanted to take care of myself a little. Is that so wrong? Richard stepped closer, his eyes scanning her face with undisguised disgust. Take care of yourself. Diane, look at yourself. Really look. After having 2 kids, you've let yourself go completely. I used to be proud to have you on my arm. Now, when I look at you, I see someone who has given up. Diane felt tears beginning to form, but she blinked them back. That's not fair, Richard. I've dedicated my life to this family, to our children, to supporting your career. The announcement supporting my career, he repeated, his voice dripping with sarcasm. He walked to the bar cart and poured himself a whiskey. That's exactly why I've made a decision about Saturday's gala. The annual company gala was the biggest event of the year for Richard's firm. Partners, executives, and important clients would all be there. Diane had been looking forward to it, hoping it might be a chance to reconnect with Richard, to remember what they once had. She asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Richard took a long sip of his drink before responding. I'm taking Jessica. She's young, polished, and knows how to make the right impression. The partners are expecting excellence, and frankly, Diane, you don't fit that image anymore. The room seemed to spin around her. Jessica. Your assistant? Richard, she's barely 25 years old. People will talk. They'll think it's inappropriate. Let them think whatever they want, he said dismissively. At least she takes care of her appearance. At least she understands the importance of presentation in my line of work. The breaking point, Diane felt something crack inside her chest. For years, she had endured Richard's subtle criticisms, his disappointed sighs, his wandering eyes whenever they were out in public. But this was different. This was public humiliation, a deliberate choice to replace her, to show the world that she was no longer good enough for him. I gave up my career for you, she said, her voice shaking now. I was a successful interior designer. I had clients, recognition, a future. But you asked me to stay home with the children. You said it would be better for the family, Richard shrugged. And that was your choice. Nobody forced you. But that doesn't mean I have to suffer the consequences of your decision. You let yourself become invisible, Diane. That's on you, not me. The seed of change after Richard left the room. Diane stood frozen in place. The tears she had been holding back finally fell, streaming down her face in hot, angry rivers. She felt humiliated, worthless, erased. But beneath the pain, something else began to stir. A small voice, buried deep under years of diminished self-esteem, began to whisper, You deserve better than this. You are more than this. Diane walked to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. She saw the lines around her eyes, the gray hairs she had not bothered to color, the tired expression that had become permanent. But she also saw something else. She saw a woman who had loved deeply, who had sacrificed willingly, who had given everything she had to her family. "I am not invisible," she whispered to her reflection. A call for help that night. After the children were asleep and Richard had locked himself in his study, Diane picked up her phone. Her hands shook as she dialed Margaret's number. Margaret had been her best friend since college. They had shared everything together: dreams, fears, laughter, and tears. When Margaret answered on the second ring, Diane broke down completely. "Margaret, I don't know what to do anymore," she sobbed. "Diane, what happened? Talk to me." Through tears, Diane explained everything. Richard's cruel words, the credit card statement, the announcement about Jessica, the years of feeling small and worthless. Margaret listened in silence. And when Diane finished, she spoke with fierce determination. "Diane Harper, listen to me very carefully. You are one of the strongest, most beautiful women I know. Richard has spent years trying to break you down because he knows that if you ever realized your true worth, you would leave him in the dust. The plan begins, but what can I do?" Diane asked. "I feel so powerless." "You're not powerless," Margaret said firmly. "In fact, you hold all the cards. You want to know what you're going to do? You're going to go to that gala. You're going to walk in there looking absolutely stunning. And you're going to remind Richard and everyone else exactly who Diane Harper is. I can't just show up. He's taking Jessica." "Then let him take Jessica," Margaret replied. "You don't need his permission. You're still his wife. You have every right to attend that gala. And trust me, when you walk through those doors, nobody will be looking at Jessica." Diane felt a spark of hope igniting in her chest. "Do you really think I can do this?" "I don't think you can do this, Diane. I know you can. And I'm going to help you every step of the way." The first step the next morning, Diane woke up with a sense of purpose she had not felt in years. She looked at Richard's credit card sitting on the dresser. He had told her she wasted his money. He had criticized her appearance. He had made her feel worthless. Well, if he wanted to see what his money could really do, she would show him. Diane picked up the card and slipped it into her purse. She had spent years making herself small, invisible, forgettable. But not anymore. Today, she would begin the process of becoming herself again. She dropped Tommy and Emma off at school, hugged them tightly, and promised to pick them up later. Then she drove to the shopping district downtown, her heart pounding with nervous excitement. The transformation begins. Margaret met her at the entrance of the city's most exclusive shopping center. She took one look at Diane's determined expression and smiled. There she is. There's the Diane I remember. They started at a high-end boutique, where elegant dresses hung like works of art. The saleswoman approached with a professional smile. "Good morning, ladies. How can I help you today?" Diane took a deep breath and said the words that would change everything. "I need a complete makeover. I have an important event this Saturday, and I want to look absolutely unforgettable." The saleswoman's eyes lit up. "Then you've come to the right place. Let's begin." As Diane tried on dress after dress, each one more beautiful than the last, she felt something awakening inside her. It was not just about the clothes or the appearance. It was about reclaiming the part of herself that Richard had tried to destroy. With each outfit, she stood a little taller, smiled a little brighter, felt a little more like the woman she used to be. Margaret watched with tears in her eyes. "You look absolutely beautiful, Diane." Diane looked at herself in the mirror, wearing a stunning navy dress that hugged her figure perfectly. For the first time in years, she agreed. The shopping spree. Diane left the boutique with 6 elegant dresses, each one carefully chosen to showcase her figure and style. The saleswoman had been incredible, patient, and enthusiastic, treating Diane like a valued client rather than someone who needed fixing. As they loaded the bags into Margaret's car, Diane felt a rush of exhilaration, mixed with nervous energy. "Where to next?" Margaret asked, grinning like a conspirator. "Shoes," Diane said decisively. "I need shoes that make a statement." They walked into an upscale shoe store where Italian leather and designer heels lined the walls like precious gems. Diane had not bought herself a pair of nice shoes in over 5 years. Richard always complained about unnecessary spending, so she had learned to make do with practical flats and worn sneakers. But today was different. Today, she was investing in herself. The store manager, a stylish woman in her 50s, named Patricia, approached them with a welcoming smile. "Looking for something special?" "Everything," Diane replied. "I want to feel powerful with every step I take." Patricia's eyes sparkled with understanding. "I know exactly what you need." The confidence builder for the next hour, Diane tried on pair after pair of stunning heels. Classic black pumps with red soles, elegant nude stilettos, bold red patent leather shoes that demanded attention. Each pair made her feel different, stronger, more confident. "These," Diane said, pointing to a pair of sleek black heels with an elegant ankle strap. "And these," she added, selecting the red ones. "And definitely these," she finished, choosing a pair of sophisticated champagne-colored pumps. Margaret whistled low. "Richard is going to have a heart attack when he sees the credit card bill," good Diane said, and she meant it. "Let him see what happens when you tell a woman she's not worth investing in." As Patricia wrapped the shoes in tissue paper and placed them in elegant boxes, she looked at Diane with approval. "Whatever event you're attending, you're going to be the most stunning woman there." "That's exactly the plan," Margaret said. Squeezing Diane's hand, the hair transformation their next stop was Nouveau Salon. The most prestigious hair salon in the city, Diane had made an appointment the night before, requesting their top stylist. The salon was beautiful, with floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, and the subtle scent of expensive hair products. A tall woman with artistic purple streaks in her dark hair approached them. "Diane Harper." "That's me," Diane said, suddenly feeling nervous. "I'm Cassandra, and I'll be taking care of you today. Come with me." She led Diane to a private styling area with perfect lighting. "So, tell me what you're looking for." Diane looked at her reflection in the large mirror. Her hair was dull, streaked with gray, and cut in a style that could only be described as practical. "I want to look like myself again. The self I was before I forgot who that was." Cassandra smiled knowingly. "I understand completely. Trust me." "Completely," Diane said. The reveal for the next 3 hours? Cassandra worked magic. She started with a deep conditioning treatment that made Diane's hair feel soft and healthy again. Then came the color, rich caramel tones with golden highlights that caught the light beautifully. Finally, Cassandra cut and styled, creating soft layers that framed Diane's face and made her look 10 years younger. When Cassandra spun the chair around for the final reveal, Diane gasped. The woman in the mirror was radiant. Her hair shone with health and vitality. The new cut emphasized her cheekbones and made her eyes appear larger and brighter. "Oh my goodness," Margaret said from where she had been waiting. "Diane, you look absolutely stunning." Tears filled Diane's eyes, but she blinked them back, not wanting to ruin the makeup consultation that was coming next. "I forgot I could look like this." "You always look like this," Cassandra said gently. "Sometimes we just need a reminder." Final touch, the salon's makeup artist, a young man named Andre with impeccable style, took over next. "We're going to enhance your natural beauty, not cover it up," he explained. "I want people to see you, not just makeup." He worked carefully, applying foundation that evened her skin tone without looking heavy, eyeshadow in warm bronze tones that made her hazel eyes appear almost golden, and a deep rose lipstick that gave her an air of sophistication. When he finished, Diane could barely recognize herself. She looked polished, elegant, and powerful. "This is just for practice," Andre said. "Saturday night, you'll come back 2 hours before your event, and we'll recreate this look perfectly." Diane nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in her throat. She had not felt beautiful in so long that she had forgotten what it felt like. The dress rehearsal Friday evening, Diane brought all her purchases to Margaret's house. Richard had been working late all week, barely speaking to her, presumably planning his big night with Jessica. He had not noticed the shopping bags Diane had hidden in the guest room closet. Nor had he noticed the new lightness in her step. "Let's see everything together," Margaret said excitedly. Diane tried on each dress, pairing them with different shoes, experimenting with accessories. But when she put on the dress she had chosen for the gala, a stunning emerald green gown with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt, both women fell silent. "That's the one," Margaret whispered. "Diane, you look like royalty." The dress was perfect. The color made her eyes shine, the cut accentuated her figure beautifully, and the overall effect was breathtaking. Diane felt tears threatening again. "I can't believe this is me," she said softly. "This has always been you," Margaret corrected. "Richard just tried to make you forget." The morning of Saturday morning arrived with bright sunshine and clear skies. Richard left early, barely acknowledging Diane as he rushed out to prepare for the evening. "Don't wait up," he said dismissively. "I'll be very late. Have a wonderful time," Diane replied sweetly, hiding her smile until he left. She dropped Tommy and Emma off at her mother's house, where they would spend the night. Her mother looked at her curiously. "You seem different today, sweetheart. Lighter somehow." "I feel different, Mom," Diane said honestly. "I feel like I'm finally waking up." At 2 o'clock. Diane arrived back at Nouveau Salon. Andre and Cassandra were waiting for her, both excited to complete the transformation. "Ready for your Cinderella moment?" Andre asked with a grin. "More than ready," Diane replied. The final preparation, as Andre worked on her makeup and Cassandra perfected her hair. Diane felt a sense of calm settling over her. This was not about revenge, she realized. This was about reclaiming herself. This was about showing the world, and more importantly showing herself, that she was still here, still vibrant, still valuable. "It's all done," Andre announced. Stepping back to admire his work, Diane looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked sophisticated, confident, and absolutely beautiful. Her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. Her makeup was flawless, and her eyes sparkled with determination. "Thank you both," she said emotionally. "You have no idea what this means to me." "You know exactly what it means," Cassandra said gently. "Now go show them who you are." The arrival Margaret drove Diane to the Grandview Hotel, where the gala was being held. The building was magnificent, with sparkling lights and a red carpet leading to the entrance. Luxury cars lined the driveway as executives and their partners arrived in formal attire. "You ready?" Margaret asked, squeezing her hand. Diane took a deep breath, smoothing down her emerald dress. "I'm ready." She stepped out of the car and immediately heads turned. The valet parking attendant nearly dropped his keys. A photographer who had been documenting arrivals instinctively raised his camera. Diane walked toward the entrance with her head held high, her heels clicking confidently on the pavement. She could feel eyes on her, hear whispered conversations, but she did not let it shake her confidence. She belonged here. She had always belonged here. The grand entrance to the ballroom was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over elegant round tables. A live orchestra played soft jazz, and waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. The room was filled with the city's business elite, all dressed in their finest. Diane paused at the entrance, taking in the scene. Across the room, she spotted Richard. He was standing near the bar with Jessica, who wore a tight red dress that was more appropriate for a nightclub than a formal gala. They were laughing about something, completely unaware of Diane's presence. Then someone noticed her. Then another. And another. Within moments, conversations began to pause as people turned to look at the stunning woman in the emerald dress who had just entered. "Who is that?" Someone whispered. "I don't know, but she's absolutely gorgeous," another voice replied. The moment of recognition, Robert Chen, one of the senior partners at Richard's firm, was the first to approach. He was a distinguished man in his 60s with kind eyes and a reputation for fairness. "Good evening," he said warmly. "I don't believe we've met." "I'm Robert Chen." Diane smiled graciously. "Actually, Mr. Chen, we have met. Several times. I'm Diane Harper, Richard's wife." Robert's eyes widened in genuine shock, followed immediately by a warm smile. "Mrs. Harper, I apologize for not recognizing you immediately. You look absolutely wonderful this evening. Please, come join us at the main table." As Robert escorted her through the ballroom, more people began to recognize her. Colleagues who had met her years ago at similar events approached with surprised compliments. New associates introduced themselves, clearly impressed, and across the room, Richard finally noticed the commotion. He turned to see what everyone was looking at, and his face went completely pale. His champagne glass froze halfway to his lips as he stared in disbelief at his wife, radiant and confident, being welcomed by the firm's senior partners. Jessica followed his gaze, and her expression shifted from confusion to concern as she realized she was no longer the center of attention. Diane caught Richard's eye across the room and gave him a small, knowing smile. Then she turned her attention back to Mr. Chen and the other partners, engaging in warm conversation as if this was exactly where she had always belonged. Because it was. The shift in power. Richard stood frozen, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. This could not be Diane. His Diane, the woman he had dismissed just days ago as frumpy and embarrassing, was now the center of attention in a room full of the city's most important business leaders. Jessica tugged at his sleeve. "Richard, who is that woman with Mr. Chen?" He could not answer. His throat felt tight, and his carefully constructed evening was crumbling around him. "That's my wife," he finally managed to say, the words tasting bitter. Jessica's eyes widened. "That's your wife? But you said she was ordinary and plain." "Richard, she's the most beautiful woman here." The comment felt like a knife twisting in his chest, because it was true. Diane outshone everyone in the room, including Jessica, whose tight red dress now seemed cheap and inappropriate compared to Diane's elegant sophistication. The gathering storm, Mr. Chen was introducing Diane to other partners and executives. "This is Diane Harper, Richard's wife. Did you know she used to be an award-winning interior designer before dedicating herself to family?" "Really?" asked Patricia Morrison, one of the firm's most influential partners. "What kind of projects did you work on?" Diane's face lit up as she discussed her past work. "I specialized in commercial spaces, actually. High-end offices, boutique hotels, exclusive restaurants. I loved creating environments that reflected a company's values and enhanced productivity." "That's fascinating," Patricia said enthusiastically. "We're actually looking to redesign our downtown office space. Would you be interested in consulting on the project?" Richard watched from across the room as Diane charmed every person she spoke with. Her laugh was genuine, her confidence natural, her intelligence evident. This was the woman he had fallen in love with years ago. Before he had systematically tried to diminish her light, Jessica shifted uncomfortably beside him. Several people had given her disapproving looks, clearly questioning why Richard had brought his young assistant as a date. The whispers had already started. "Maybe I should leave," Jessica said quietly. "This feels wrong, Richard." "No," he said sharply, though his eyes never left Diane. "We're staying." The first confrontation, Richard could not take it anymore. Watching Diane succeed where he had expected her to fail, watching her shine where he had told her she would embarrass him, was too much. He walked purposefully across the ballroom, leaving Jessica standing awkwardly alone. "Diane," he said, interrupting her conversation with the partners. His voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "Can I speak with you privately?" Diane turned to him with a calm smile, as if his presence neither surprised nor concerned her. "Hello, Richard. I'm actually in the middle of a fascinating conversation with Mr. Chen and Ms. Morrison about potential design projects." "Now," Richard insisted, his jaw clenched. Mr. Chen raised an eyebrow. "Richard, that seems rather rude." "Your wife is our guest." "She's my wife," Richard snapped, then immediately regretted his tone in front of his superiors. Diane placed a gentle hand on Mr. Chen's arm. "It's all right. I'll speak with him." She turned to Richard with that same unshakable calm. "But we can talk right here. I have nothing to hide." Richard glanced around, aware that they were attracting attention. "Fine," he said through gritted teeth, lowering his voice. "What exactly do you think you're doing here?" "I'm attending my husband's company gala," Diane replied simply. "Is that a problem?" "You know exactly what I mean. I told you I was bringing Jessica." "Yes, I heard that," Diane said, her voice pleasant but firm. "But you seem to have forgotten that I'm still your wife. I have every right to be here." "More right than your assistant?" certainly. The public unraveling several people nearby had stopped pretending not to listen. The tension between Richard and Diane was palpable, and the gossip was spreading through the ballroom like wildfire. You're making a fool of yourself, Richard hissed. Coming here like this, trying to prove something. Diane's expression remained serene, but her eyes flashed with steel. A fool? Is that what you think? Richard, look around. Look at how people are responding to me. Look at the business opportunities that have come my way in just 30 minutes. The only person making a fool of themselves tonight is you. Richard felt heat rising in his face. You used my credit card without permission. You spent thousands of dollars on this ridiculous makeover. Ridiculous. Patricia Morrison interjected, unable to stay silent. Richard, your wife looks absolutely stunning. And frankly, the way you're speaking to her is completely inappropriate. Richard turned to Patricia, his face reddening. With all due respect, Ms. Morrison, this is a private matter. Not when you're causing a scene at a company event, Patricia replied coolly. Perhaps you should take a moment to compose yourself. The truth emerges. Diane stepped forward, drawing Richard's attention back to her. You want to talk about the credit card? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how for 10 years I've managed every aspect of our household on a budget you controlled. Let's talk about how I gave up my career, my dreams, my identity to support yours. Let's talk about how you've spent years making me feel worthless because it made you feel powerful. People were openly watching now, the nearby conversations having ceased entirely. Richard felt trapped, exposed, humiliated in front of everyone who mattered. You're being dramatic, he said weakly. Am I? Diane's voice remained steady, but there was passion behind it now. You told me I was an embarrassment. You said I had let myself go. You brought your assistant to this event to publicly humiliate me. Well, Richard, here I am. And the only person who should be embarrassed is you, the final stand. Mr. Chen stepped forward, his expression serious. Richard, I think you need to understand something. Harper Industries values integrity, respect, and professionalism. What I'm witnessing right now is none of those things. Richard felt panic rising. His career, everything he had worked for, was suddenly at risk. Mr. Chen, I can explain. I don't think you need to explain anything, Mr. Chen said firmly. Your actions speak quite clearly. Bringing your young assistant as a date while your accomplished wife stays home? That shows poor judgment. Speaking to your wife this way in public? That shows a lack of character. Patricia Morrison nodded in agreement. Richard, I've been watching your performance at the firm for some time. Your work is adequate, but your attitude has always concerned me. This evening has confirmed my concerns. Richard felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. Everything was falling apart. I've given everything to this firm. And your wife gave everything to you, Patricia said pointedly. The difference is, she seems to have gotten nothing in return except criticism and contempt. The liberation. Diane watched Richard's face cycle through anger, panic, and finally defeat. For years, she had feared his disapproval, lived for his rare moments of praise, accepted his version of reality. But standing here now, surrounded by people who saw her value, she realized something profound. She did not need his validation. She never had. Richard, she said quietly, I want you to understand something. This evening was not about revenge. It was about remembering who I am. For too long, I let you define my worth. I let your words shape how I saw myself. But I'm done with that now. Diane, he started, his voice desperate now. She held up a hand. I'm not finished. You told me I was worthless, that I was an embarrassment, that no one would ever want to see me in public. But look around this room. Look at the opportunities people are offering me. Look at the respect they're showing me. The only person who couldn't see my value was you, at the new beginning, mister. Chen smiled warmly at Diane. Mrs. Harper, I meant what I said earlier. We would be honored to have you consult on our office redesign project. Your experience and vision would be invaluable. And I'm serious about wanting to discuss other projects as well, Patricia added. The firm has several clients who could benefit from your expertise. Diane felt tears of joy threatening, but she maintained her composure. Thank you both. I would love to explore these opportunities. Richard stood there, diminished and defeated, as his wife stepped fully into her power. Jessica had quietly slipped away, embarrassed by the entire situation. Other colleagues were avoiding Richard's gaze, clearly disapproving of his behavior. "I think," Diane said, looking directly at Richard, "that when I get home tonight, we need to have a serious conversation about the future of our marriage. But that's a private discussion. For now, I'm going to enjoy this evening with people who actually appreciate me." She turned back to Mr. Chen and Patricia, effectively dismissing Richard. He stood there for another moment, then slowly walked away. The whispers and judgment following him, the triumph the rest of the evening, was magical for Diane. She danced, laughed, discussed business opportunities, and reconnected with the professional woman she had once been. People sought her out, wanting to talk with her, hear her ideas, offer her opportunities. At one point, Margaret arrived, having planned to make an appearance. When she saw Diane holding court with the firm's senior partners, her face broke into a huge smile. "Look at you," Margaret whispered when she got a moment alone with Diane. "I couldn't have done this without you," Diane said, hugging her friend. "Yes, you could have. You just needed a reminder that you were strong enough." As the evening wound down, Diane took one last look around the ballroom. Richard was nowhere to be seen, having left early in disgrace. Jessica had disappeared hours ago, but Diane remained radiant and confident. Discussing a promising business venture with Patricia Morrison, the journey forward when Diane finally left the gala. She felt lighter than she had in years. She sat in the back of the car Margaret had arranged, looking out at the city lights, and smiled. Her phone buzzed with a text from Richard. "We need to talk," she typed back simply. "Yes, we do. But on my terms now." The next morning, Diane woke up in Margaret's guest room, feeling peaceful. She had decisions to make about her marriage, her career, her future. But for the first time in a decade, those decisions would be hers alone. She picked up her phone and saw several emails from the previous night. Patricia Morrison following up about the design projects, Mr. Chen sending over preliminary information about the office redesign, 2 other executives from different companies asking if she would be interested in consulting work. Diane smiled. She had spent 10 years making herself smaller, quieter, less significant. She had believed Richard when he said she was not enough, that she had nothing to offer, that her worth was measured only by how well she served him. But last night had proven something crucial. She was enough. She had always been enough. And now, the whole world was about to see what she could do. As she started responding to the emails, planning her next steps, Diane felt something she had not felt in years. Not just happiness or confidence, but genuine excitement for the future. She was free, and her story was just beginning. The final choice, Richard tried calling that afternoon, but Diane did not answer. She was too busy setting up meetings, researching design trends, and reconnecting with former colleagues. Her career had been dormant, but it was not dead, and she was going to bring it back to life stronger than ever. When she finally did sit down with Richard 2 days later, it was in a lawyer's office. She had made her choice. She was choosing herself. "You can't be serious," Richard said when he saw the divorce papers. "I've never been more serious about anything," Diane replied calmly. "I deserve better than this, Richard. And my children deserve to see their mother standing strong, not broken down." As she walked out of that office, her head held high, Diane realized something important. The gala had not transformed her. The makeover had not changed who she was. Those things had simply removed the layers of doubt and self-hatred that Richard had buried her. Under the woman who walked into that ballroom had always existed. She had just been waiting for permission to emerge, and now, finally, she was free.